Welcome to Clearing the Haze podcast. I'm your host, Chuck Marting, and today we have Chandra Spring DeWald with us, who is is running for NDASA Board of Directors. She's one of the nominees, and so we've asked for her to come onto the show, and she's here. So, Chandra, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Awesome. Well, can you do me a favor? And I've got to know you over the last year, but if you can let everybody else know who you are, what you do, and a little bit about your background, that would be great.
Thank you. Thank you. Uh, So when people ask me, right, like no one wakes up one morning and says, you know what, I want to collect pee for a living. I don't think anybody goes to college and says, that's my goal. That's my goal. For me, it's a family thing. And I don't mean to come across that it's like, well, all these other people in my family, they've done this and it's a business and therefore, I got roped into it. It's not that at all. My mother actually started the occupational health department that I currently work for.
Hmm.
She retired from the exact same position that I currently hold in 1994. Um, it's strange when I say that to people. Like I didn't used to start with that. I didn't want people to believe that it was like a hand me down or well, you were groomed for it or something. Because I didn't jump right into it. Like she retired in 1994 and I was still in college in 1994. Um, but I definitely she was a single mother. And I grew up beside her. She was a scientist. She wasn't the person that was doing the collecting. She was the certifying scientist. So she was doing drug testing in the 80s in central Pennsylvania before the Omnibus Act was even a thing. Um, there were industries that were interested in drug testing back then. They already had the idea about being a safe and healthy work environment. And she went to a conference, I'm going to say in the late 80s, and introduced her to the world of the Omnibus Act. And that's how she created, like it was just a normal laboratory setting. And then from that conference, she created what I work for today.
Cool.
Um, so it's very interesting. And when I think back on that, like being a single mom, when I would get done with school, I would go to the hospital, I would go to the lab, and I would wait for her to be done working, which could be excruciating, like hours and hours. But where I got my love, and it's where, strangely enough, when I think back on it, it's where I was introduced to drug and alcohol testing at a very early age. And when you really roll that back, and I mean, I even started learning about cheaters clear back then in the 80s. I remember my mother very distinctly telling me about how these individuals would come in for drug testing, and some of them were court ordered. And she said, they would pack baking soda under their fingernails to try and throw off the gas chromatography testing, even way back then.
Wow.
Right. So and given that you and I, that's probably some of our favorite topics to talk about are the cheaters and how to catch them, and how to make sure that you're doing right by your client. But like I said, it wasn't that I just transitioned right into what she did. Like I was the typical rebellious 20-year-old that totally my back on everything that came second nature to me. I mean, I had been raised in that laboratory setting, like literally raised in that laboratory setting, but strong 20 something, I know what I want to do. And probably turned my back on that and went to college for horticulture. And from there, that was like 12 years. And then I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to do law enforcement. Okay, did law enforcement, and because plants and law enforcement, they come together in drug testing, and they do actually. Like those things led me to where I was, and I just in 2002, I couldn't continue to turn my back on it. It was calling, it was a second nature. I had done my 20 something, whatever, and it wasn't what ignited any passion in me. While I was good at both of those things, it wasn't really what was driving me to be happy. And I think you have to do something in your life that makes you happy, because otherwise it's just a struggle every day, and you're just coming in to be, you know, a widget maker, as one of my bosses said to me. He says, do you want to just be a widget maker? Because that's where you're headed. And I didn't want to be that. Um, so this whole when I started in it in 2002, I started all the way down in the bottom, like at the ground level. I was a what they call a roadside or an on-site collector. And I was doing the collections, standing on the side of Interstate 80 in the snow, in the rain, at construction sites, all the glorious things of that. But I worked my way up, and I paid attention to things that were going on. I went to various conferences. I went to trainings. I went to regional trainings, and I learned and blossomed in this industry, and realized that, what, this is my niche. I really, really have a passion for this, and I'm committed to it. And I've grown that commitment several times. I've reinvented this occupational health arm for the drug testing twice, and I've been lucky to recreate that twice. So I started in 2002, and it wasn't here, right? Like, I still hadn't come back to what my mother created, even in 2002. I started someplace else because I still was holding on to that. I don't want people to believe that it was just handed to me, because I wanted to earn it. I wanted to earn it on my own and show people that, it wasn't just a hand-me-down kind of a position, that I had my own passion and my own understanding, and I poured my whole self, honestly, into that. And I take to heart the successes and failures of my clients. And my main role is a third-party administrator here, and I take their successes to heart when they successfully pass an audit, or they successfully get their randoms done in a timely manner, and it's all done correctly. But I take their failures too, because you can't have success without failure.
Mhm.
You really can't. You can't just be good, 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 and then if you ever or never fail, were you really pushing yourself to expand and be the best that you can be? And I try to take any failures that we have and turn them into learning experiences. So that's where I'm at.
I was kind of reminiscing and kind of laughing a little bit when you were talking about the horticulture part of this with the plants and stuff, because I had a flashback of when I was, on patrol and myself on graveyards, and I used to love when it would snow, because then I would go and get out of my car and walk through the neighborhood looking at the roofs, because then you'd see the parts that weren't that the snow was melting, and you knew that they were growing weed in their house or something, because of the heat lamps and stuff. So that was one of those things that you just, if you knew, you knew. And so you used to go through, and I kept our task force pretty busy finding houses that would fit under that description of them to go and check into further. So it's amazing the things that you learn as you go through life and do some various things. But you've got a very interesting background, and I understand with family-owned businesses. Mine's a family-owned business as well, and so you do have that. You want to be able to prove yourself and be able to show that you're able to do just as good, if not better, work than the person before you. So I understand that. So, if you're elected to the NDASA board, what are your top priorities? What are the things that you're wanting to see accomplished within the organization, and how do you feel that NDASA will evolve in the next 5 years?
So I think that we we need to work on the idea that education is where the basis of everything that we do. I currently am a co-chair for the mentorship committee with Dean Classy, who is also running for a position on the board. And he was my very first instructor. And I remind him of that, not to make him feel old. It's not that. It's that he has contributed
Yeah.
so much to the industry and continues to do so, and is a vital part to what has made me. I can't thank him enough for that, for what he inspired. Early on, in that very beginning introduction there, I was telling you that, I found a passion, and going to the conferences and going to these events and being educated. It's where I see and what I see for a vision for NDASA for moving forward. I mean, when we say that, like, education is a top priority to me, not just because of the mentoringship or not just because of the training committee, but it's the education all the way across the board. We're educating our national leaders. We're educating our companies. We're educating the public. We're educating our members. We're educating everyday individuals when any one of us does a presentation like this.
Mhm.
Your platform is educating, and we can't move forward. I mean, education is that backbone of knowledge, and you can't have knowledge without education. I mean, proper education, when the federal government comes to us and they hand us, like they recently did, the oral fluid guidelines. And as educators, as trainers, we were able to look at that, and then, a group put together this kind of Q&A thing to push back to say, listen, I know you've given us these steps or these processes. And, being a trainer since 2016, it's vital for us to be able to look at that and to take that back. And part of that vision or part of that education is going back to those leaders who wrote this, and being able, as an organization, as the face and the name for the drug and alcohol industry, to go back to them and say, listen, I appreciate that you put this down, but step 1, 2, 5, 6, 4 is, it's not working for us. You're going to confuse everybody, and we've got a thing that's in place. But it just goes back to the education and making sure that we're providing the best education. And I think that's what NDASA is known for. It's what we strive to be. We strive to be. We're not TikTok. Like, those of us that are on, like, the various meetings, like the town hall, and you constantly hear somebody say, oh gosh, there was this terrible thing on TikTok, and we're just constantly being that voice, that educated voice, to say, that's not right. Don't listen to that person.
Yeah, I find that a lot. I get a lot of emails and stuff asking about certain questions or covering certain things on the podcast because of what has been seen on social media. So having that checks and balance is very important to be able to at least point people in the right direction. It's been very entertaining in some points, but it's also been pretty sad because I've seen people be taken advantage of and have a lot of money and hopes just flushed down the drain because of something they saw, because they thought they were doing their due diligence, but they didn't go in the right direction. And like I shared in the podcast before, I was taken at the beginning of my journey in this industry for a little over 10 grand. So I knew that that's one of my passions, is making sure that people aren't taken advantage of, and that they are able to get the right resources they need so they can be successful. So I totally understand, and it resonates with me what you just said. You know, what do you feel are the biggest challenges facing the drug and alcohol screening industry today, and how do you plan to help NDASA in addressing those challenges?
I think that we would be remiss not to constantly point to the marijuana industry. It continues to be and has been since the dawn of time or drug testing. It's a challenge for us. The marijuana industry certainly is. It's not without its backing. Money talks. We've got 32 states, roughly, right? And a district that have legalized marijuana in one form or another. And without the proper protections in place, these types of substances, keeping them on that HHS drug testing panel is imperative when we're looking at that. And that's a challenge that we're facing right now. We've been very lucky that NDASA has gotten a seat at the table, as they say. I mean, I'm sure many other people have said that exact same statement, and it's the truth. We've gotten a seat at the table with the DEA's discussions about whether or not they're going to reclassify marijuana to a Schedule III drug, and that's terrifying from a perspective of looking at this and keeping a safe and healthy work environment. I don't want one of my clients, they make swimming pools. Well, when they're moving that swimming pool around, they're lifting it on a crane, right? And it's thousands of pounds, and they're moving it across the spans of their work environment over top of other workers and over top of other lines. And having someone who is under the influence of a Schedule I federally illegal drug, because in the state of Pennsylvania we have medical marijuana, and they hold up that medical marijuana card as a flag of, can't touch me.
Badge of honor.
It's not, yeah, not that cut and dry. So that challenge of it not being cut and dry certainly is what I believe is facing us. I mean, your own podcasts and your own educational seminars, you're talking about a host of other impairing medications, right? We're talking about psilocybin mushrooms. We're talking about even prescriptions, like regular prescriptions that somebody has that can cause them to be impaired. I think that's a challenge that the industry faces. And again, I don't mean to beat it to death, but education is what's key to finding those solutions with this industry. I mean, if we're looking at this and we're saying, well, I have a medical marijuana card, and I can't tell you how many employers that are like, oh, I can't do that drug testing because we've legalized it in this form or that form. And that's not true. And just getting that message out repetitively. And I did a seminar for a local SHRM group, and it was on medical marijuana in the state of Pennsylvania. And I really had believed that we beat that drum to death when legalization was coming into Pennsylvania for that. We started talking about it in 2014, and I probably did, I kid you, I'm going to say 75 events, but 14 and 17 about marijuana in the state of Pennsylvania. And I thought, everybody has heard this, and they're probably, quite honestly, tired of hearing, the same thing. The local SHRM group reached out to me last year, and they said, hey, we want you to, we heard one of your speeches and your talks, and we want you to do something. Could you do something for us? And I said, well, sure. What are you interested in? And when they brought that up, I just kind of was like, really? We're going to talk about that again? You know what? We need to keep talking about it. And that brought it back for me, truly. Having them come to me, and we filled that room to capacity, to what their true capacity was. And it brought it back around for me to say, we're changing the DERs, the HRs. There's a turnover that I wasn't paying attention to.
Mm.
And and I wasn't fully focused on the idea that we do have to keep educating, even though I might think that I have said that same thing 400 times. It needs to keep being said, and
Yeah.
it needs to keep being in the forefront of conversations, and understand that, being impaired isn't just an illegal substance, it's a legal substance. It's writing your policies. And I think part of those solutions is that as well, is making sure that companies have policies in place and educating. It's just, it's always, I don't mean to make them buzzwords, but they're fundamental bricks to what we do.
But in the same sense, I think until people are faced with that issue, they don't think it's an issue. We're here in Colorado going on a little over 2 decades of having legalized and recreational marijuana, and yet I still have clients that have no clue. They don't have policies, they don't have anything, and they don't know where to start. So you're absolutely right. We are involved in this industry, and so we're constantly doing these trainings and stuff. So we think that everybody knows, and yet they don't. So it's amazing that the reach that the um, pro marijuana groups have had and the ability they have had of getting things out and for people to instantly resonate and say, yeah, that's true, without doing their due diligence or really knowing what the truth is mind-boggling to me. But um, it's been interesting.
I attended a seminar as well, because I attend seminars as well, right, about it, because I need the education to continue to push that down the line. And one of the ones I recently attended, the number that they pushed out to me, my brain just could not wrap around it. And we talk about that the marijuana industry is the most prolific industry and has money at their disposal that no industry could dream of, right?
Hmm.
And the estimate at this seminar that I went to was that the marijuana industry will have over $44 billion at their disposal in 10 years.
Wow.
How do we fight that?
Yeah.
Right? How do we do that? And I think that certainly the education piece of it is vital and beyond vital, and teaching the next generation, right? And remembering that there's a new generation that's coming that hasn't heard about this, or maybe they did, and maybe they've got a different mindset because they are younger, right? And they were like, well, you know what? Marijuana's not that bad. I mean, it's no big deal. And they've normalized it. So many things have normalized it, and making sure that we're continuing to get that understanding out, that it's not normal for someone to come to work buzzed. It's not acceptable for someone to come to work impaired. It's not acceptable for somebody to come to work under the influence, right? And making sure, like you said, those policies, just those two terms, right?
Mm.
Under the influence and impaired.
Mm. Big difference.
They sound like the same word, and therefore I can just throw them out and throw them onto black and white paper, and they mean the same thing, and it's no big deal. And they go to that first unemployment hearing, like you said, it never matters to them until it affects them.
Mhm. I think that one of the things that we need to understand is that this fight isn't something that we have to do on our own, that there are plenty of other groups that are right there with us that are trying to do the same thing, and being able to team up with them to be able to get that message out is so crucially important. So I think that NDASA has done a pretty good job in trying to partner with groups to be able to get that word out. Um, One of those ways of getting the work out or the word out is in our advocacy, and we just got done in having our advocacy groups out in Washington, D.C. this last week. So, NDASA has taken on and they played a key role in that advocacy in shaping policies related to drug and alcohol testing. My question for you is, how would you work to strengthen the organization's influence in policymaking and also in industry regulations?
I was fortunate enough to join NDASA last year,
Mhm.
to go to Washington, D.C. for Advocacy Day and to be a partner in educating the leaders, which was something I said at the top of this conversation, was educating our lawmakers and educating them about the the need that the eminent need for a national safety carve out. And that, those were the buttons that we wore last year. I saw the group that was there this year and championing everything that we stand for in advocating for just that safety carve out. We're not saying, the boat's already sailed on whether or not marijuana is going to be legal all the way across the board. I mean, you can't unring that bell. It's I don't see any prohibition movement happening here. So, but we've got to hold on to this idea and make sure that the lawmakers understand you just can't push it back across the board and say, yeah, it's fine. It's, anybody can do it.
Yeah.
But continuing to push that priority to all of my clients, all of my DERs, all of my collectors, all the people that I train. So ensuring that that message is pushed out about the dangers of marijuana or impairing medications, legal or illegal, whichever it is.
Mhm.
Served on the DASA board starting in 2016 when we were two different organizations. But we were never really two different organizations. We were always the same. We ultimately had the same priority and agenda. And it was for the betterment of the industry, for the drug and alcohol industry as a whole.
Mhm.
And that basic component, again, is educating the national leaders, educating the companies, the public, the individual people. I'm not politically aligned myself personally, but I'm there to back all of my fellow members that are.
Mhm.
And I bring a pretty loud voice when I need it, right? And I've been told I'm abrasive sometimes. Where did you get that from?
Well,
But it calls for being abrasive. It calls for being that loud voice. And people make a joke, right? The squeaky wheel gets the oil. It's not a lie, you're right. It's the truth. And we have fallen behind the marijuana industry in making our voice heard. So pushing for that agenda to be heard and educating my clients and saying to them, contact your congressman. And that's where my advocacy comes from, is pushing my clients to be the voice. They have to listen to us. We are the people. And the more people that push this agenda and make sure that they understand, listen, I know the marijuana industry has a bunch of money and re-elections happen because of money, but you better also remember that you can't get elected by dead people. And those dead people are pile up if you do this. I mean, it's bold, it's blatant, it's right there. It's not a lie.
well, being a wallflower and ignoring it's not going to help. You have to be involved, like you said. And I think that's the important part of things is allowing our membership to know that they do have a voice and it does matter and that it needs to be heard. And I think we're starting to see that with a lot of growth within in DASA, allowing people to have that voice. So it's been a good thing. Um, One of the things I wanted to ask you too is with the advancement in testing technology and it's evolving constantly, and also with the regulations of its use, how do you think NDASA can help its members stay ahead of the industry changes?
The changes, I mean, that's the whole point of our evolution. Everything is constantly changing. I can admit that I am not a big fan of change. And I can tell you that. But when I look around and I see what there is to gain from that new technology, or how we can improve and continue to improve on maintaining safe work environments, the introduction of oral fluid testing, while it's not new across the board, right? But it's new to the federal government. It's new to HHS, and we're trying to get there. We've been trying to get there for a long time.
Long time.
You know, we were right there. We were right on the cusp. And then fentanyl. I'm not saying fentanyl's not bad. I'm not saying it shouldn't be added to the panel, but perhaps some people didn't take a really good look at how that was going to affect the new technology.
Yeah.
And that jokingly, the new technology of oral fluid and what that was going to do to us. So when HHS comes out and says, hey, we want to add fentanyl and we want to maybe take off ecstasy. Oh, wait, no, we don't. No, we don't. We want to keep ecstasy on there. Yeah, we do. No, we don't. Whiplash and all the things, but it set us back. And it's terrible to say that the technology is going backwards, and in a way it kind of is, until we can get our footing again. My daughter is pursuing her PhD in organic chemistry. I stopped understanding most of the things that she talks to me about 2 years ago. Have a Charlie Brown moment when she's very passionate. She's my science girl. Again, here we go. You know, my mother was a scientist. I'm in the science. My daughter, and you know, it's become a thing, but she's headed down a different path, right? So I have a Charlie Brown moment with her when she's passionately telling me what her PhD studies are and what it's linked to and what her hope is to come from that. And it's a wah, 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 beaker, wah, 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 wah. I don't know. Oh, carbon bonds. You kind of remember that? No, no, keep going. But she's so passionate. And I said to her, I said, could you use that to work with my industry? And she was like, what do you mean? I said, we need an impairment level. We need an impairment level for drugs. I said, and it has been something that has been gnawing at the industry for 40 years, right? 30 years. I said, we need that. Can you maybe work on that for me? And you know, it was something that she actually did kind of hold on to in her mind. And when she started down this organic chemistry path, you know, she started to look at it more. I said, listen, there are brilliant minds that have been working on this for decades. I said, it takes just one more brilliant mind, and maybe you are that brilliant mind that's going to bring innovation in this technology to us. So I think keeping the NDASA idea and path to these younger people coming, right? Influencing the next generation that's coming and providing them with, hey, we need this. Do you think something you're interested in? And it takes that spark, just that one little spark. I'm sure other people have come on your programs and said, this was my spark. This was my why. I'm trying to find a why for that next generation that maybe believes that, you know, marijuana is okay. It's no big deal. It's just a natural plant. It's whatever. But again, I guess it goes back to that education. It's education and technology. They all come together, right? So that's what I hope to bring, is to constantly be sparking something in that next generation coming up behind us.
You know, there's been some interesting family conversations and get-togethers that have resulted from people bringing up questions like what you're saying. So it's something that is a very passionate topic. I have found, whether you're for it or against it. Look at the pro marijuana groups; they're just as passionate about getting their message out as we are, as far as trying to let people know what they need to look at when it comes to this before you go legalizing something. Um, but some days it feels like we're in a losing battle, and then some days you're inspired by some of the things that come out, like what you're saying. New people, new perspective, new eyes looking at the same problem that may have seen something that we missed. You know, that those opportunities are there. So I'm glad to hear that. It gives me hope that we still have people that are wanting to engage in this and make a difference. So that's good to know. Um, what leadership qualities do you bring to the executive board? And the reason why I ask this question is, having served on the board for the last 6 years, there are a lot of passionate people that are entrepreneurs, that are leaders in their own right, but from different industries and different areas of our business. You're going to be in there with some strong personalities and people that have specific skill sets that they bring to the table. And having that in mind, what do you think your leadership qualities and the things that you're bringing to the table are going to be able to contribute?
So 2002, it seems like a lifetime ago. But there are people that are on the board currently and people that are running for the board now. Every single one of them brings a unique piece to the board. And no matter who is elected, it's going to be the best board
Yeah.
that has ever. It really is.
Yeah.
And there are some, like you said, there are some extremely strong, intelligent individuals that are running for the board, that currently sit on the board. And I'm not afraid to tell you that sometimes I'm not sure that my position is there. But I then, my husband reminded me just yesterday, he said, you know your stuff. You bring a passion to the board. And I believe that I bring a perspective that doesn't currently exist on the board. I mean, my leadership, so I started in the drug and alcohol industry late in my career, I will say. But I started with a very small, personal, standalone occupational health facility. There were 5 employees. That's it. They had 15 clients when I came on. And what I learned was all of us are marketing. All of us are selling ourselves. We're selling our skills. We're selling our business. And that's what NDASA needs. NDASA needs to be sold to the public. They need to be sold on our ideas. They need to be sold on what our passions are. And, my organizational skills as far as selling and marketing and growth are what's going to help this board and our organization succeed. We need more of a push for a marketing team. The organization that I currently work for, our motto, one of the mottos is world-class care. No matter what we're doing, no matter what branch we seem to find ourselves on in this organization, the overall key aspect is providing world-class care, world-class respect, world-class representation. And that's what I have learned in the 22 plus years of being in this industry, is that people need to feel respected. They need to feel appreciated. They need to feel that their voice is being heard. And that's what I bring, is that maybe that smaller voice over here in the corner. I'm not a CEO. I'm not a business owner. I'm the average. I view myself as the average member, to be honest. So.
Well, I think with everything that you've talked about so far on the show, you bring a lot to the table. Your ability to hit in areas that other people are not, and that's definitely needed on the board. And like I previously said, everybody has a specific skill set that they bring, that when you start looking at the group that you're in the room with, you're like going, wow, there's some incredible people here. And so much potential to do so many different things within NDASA. It's mind-boggling. Um, Member engagement has been one of the things that NDASA has been trying to get, is that engagement of its members, and to attract both new professionals and also different organizations to NDASA. So what would you do, or how do you plan on enhancing that engagement?
Again, it's that marketing, getting the word out, so to speak, for NDASA. I mean, NDASA as a whole, attending other conferences, that are strategic in our industry. And you mentioned it, right? There are other organizations that are fighting this same battle or fighting for these same ideas, and us partnering with those others, attending the conference as a vendor versus being the conference presenter. Advocacy Day, our PAC, those are all pieces of what we need in order to engage and grow as an organization. Like so many of us, I wear 5 different hats in a day, right? And we all do, right? So I'm an MROA, I'm a third-party administrator, I'm a consortia, I'm a trainer. Ultimately, as I said earlier, we're all in marketing. We're all, from the very first person that answers your phone in your business, they're marketing. They're the first voice that somebody hears when they call and they're looking for something for you. So they're marketing. They're pushing right out of the gate. All the way up to the CEOs, right? That sign that final contract. They're marketing. They're pushing out this idea. And that's what we need. We've grown considerably. I mean, between the merger and like in the last town hall, Sarah mentioned that, it was a banger time this last quarter where we have grown the membership exponentially. And that's what we need, right? We need all of these members. We need all of these voices. We need this with the advocacy. We need this with just making sure that the industry as a whole is protected. It's growing that organization, but I think it may not be a welcomed answer, but I think NDASA needs more staff. I think that we can only go so far when you have a limited number of staff. And ultimately, I think that was the demise of the other organization, is the lack of staff, the lack of the ability to answer the questions of the membership in a timely manner, being able to get basic things to the membership and make them feel like they've paid money to be part of something, and they really do have a connection, and they really do have an avenue for their questions, their needs, their training, their wants, whatever it is. But I think we need to expand. I think having a marketing division for NDASA is key to engagement and growth. And while the executive director, her role is immense, and I cannot even fathom all of the things that she has been able to accomplish. I don't mean by herself, but she's involved in every single aspect, and an executive director should. But I think that we could do better, and I think we could have more growth if we had some strategically utilized staff for NDASA.
And I agree. I think delegation is the key there in having people in place that are going to be able to take some of that burden and some of that load and be able to take on whatever it is that we're trying to accomplish within NDASA. It's one of those unique groups that I've spoke about in past episodes that we've done now too, that it's one of the only groups that I've been involved in where you can join a committee and there's been no cap that has been placed on a committee. You can go in there with as many as 30 people or more, and you can come in with 5 people or less, depending on the committee and who has the passion to be on it. But what I think is very unique to us is allowing the members to just be able to do that. Choose where you want to get involved. Choose where you want to pour yourself into NDASA. And now let's work together. Let's get something put out that's going to further the agenda of NDASA and what we're trying to accomplish. So to me, I think that's really important, is that engagement, like you said, and to be able to have that, but to be able to give people that are in those positions the ability to do those things without being hindered with feeling like they have to do it all. So
yeah,
so
and it takes a village.
it does.
It takes more than just 4 people or 3 people and not opening ourselves up to that idea, I think would hinder us. And yeah.
Well, and it's hard. I mean, I'm a business owner right now, and believe me, it's hard for me to delegate some of the tasks that I have to other people on my team because I feel like I've worn all the hats for so long. For me, it's just easier just to do it and not have to get you involved. But I have to learn that my talents and gifts need to go in another direction, allow other people to do these things as well. And so I think that's part of the educational part of being a leader and also in being a entrepreneur and wanting to further things is to have that realization and then um, trusting that that's what other people are going to do too. That's a big thing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a Leo, right? And I don't mean to throw that out like ha ha ha. But it's that control
Yeah.
piece, like you just said, right? It's your business, it's your baby, it's your livelihood. And letting go of a piece of that, even though you've instructed this person, you've taught them, but to hand it over is scary. And it becomes that moment of, you know what, I can just do it faster and I can get it done and move it off. And it's a post-it note I can take off on my desk if I just do it myself. But we're not going to grow, and we're not going to keep the membership engaged with us if everybody just holds everything inside and just says, no, you can't be part of that. This is something that only these 5 people can do. Or
Yeah.
yeah. And expanding that, like you said, and getting people to engage in the committees is paramount. And like you said, I'm on a committee or two that has just a handful of people. And then I'm on another one where there's 30 of us. And that also takes a little control too, because you get 30 different ideas that
Mhm.
just firecracker off of each other. And before you know it, you've lost what it was that you thought you were going to be doing that day. Yeah.
Well, and this is a hard one for me because I'm coming off of the board after 6 years, my choosing because I feel that we have enough people within the organization that we need to have other people have that voice, allow them to have that growth, allow them to be able to further NDASA in what's been started. So um, we have good people. We have a lot of good people, a lot of people that need to step up that would be so valuable to what we're trying to accomplish within NDASA. But having people like yourself and others that are willing to mentor and bring these people up is what we need so we can get them in that position. Sometimes people don't know that they can flourish and be able to add so much until you tell them and you help them realize that, yeah, you have a lot to offer and we need you. So I think that's why that's so important to engage the members and to continue to involve them. And I feel that NDASA has done a really good job at doing that, and we continue to. Um, why do you believe you're the right candidate for this position? You know, and what message would you like to leave with NDASA members as they consider your vote? And by no means is that the last question. I still got a couple more for you, but I just wanted to kind of throw that out to get your take on this.
I think we've said it many times that NDASA is a membership driven organization, and it needs all of the members to be represented. We should have CEOs, we should have MROs, we should have law enforcement, business owners, educators, scientists, collectors. I think every single one of them should have a representative on the board. And the cogs on this wheel won't turn if there's a piece that's missing, right? We'll just skip along, and all the voices won't be heard, and those members that aren't being heard will leave. And that's the last thing that we need. We need everyone to feel like they've got a voice and they've got an investment in this. I mean, it goes back to my collector days. I said that I wear all these different hats, right? I still feel that in the core of it, I'm a collector. The collector is the first person, is the first link in this chain. And it's very unfortunate that the collector has been labeled the weakest link in this chain. And that irks me. That irks me a lot because I view myself as a
Yeah.
collector, and I'm like, you know, it's not, that's not true. That's just not true. We're the forefront, and this wouldn't exist without us. You could have an MRO sitting there all day, but if he doesn't have a specimen that was collected, what's his purpose, right?
Yeah.
You have a certifying scientist that's sitting there waiting for that FedEx bag to show up, but it doesn't because you don't have anybody who wants to be a collector because you've labeled them as worthless or unworthy.
Yeah.
And that just gets under my skin. So that's what I believe that I bring, and what my joining the board would bring to this is understanding that, you know, the collector is the one who's down at ground level, down in the mud or in the urine, right? We want to use some cute little analogy, like it's all urine, pee. And it's we need that voice at the table, and I believe that I advocate for that cog in this wheel, and it's just a matter of getting everyone's voice heard and laying out, you know, this starts here and it ends here, but it's going to start right back over again. So you've got to keep that wheel moving, and I hope that that's the voice that I bring. I mean, I want to thank you for allowing each of the nominees the opportunity to be a part of your platform and to allow us to get our ideas out and to answer the questions. And like many of them, I'm sure I'm open to people contacting me, reaching out to me and asking me, you know, more questions, or if you have something that maybe I didn't enlighten on enough, if they want to reach out to me, I'm open to that. I think that each one of us showcases a different belief and a different benefit to the board. And I think that the members that are voting need to decide which 7 people speak to them, which 7 people have their same values and interests in mind, and cast their vote in that manner. You know, it's making sure that your voice is heard. And that's what I hope to resonate with the membership, is that I want to be that voice. And if you take away from the things that I've labeled, they're not going to be the same as another nominee. No matter who gets on this board, though, as I said before, it's going to be the best board ever. It really is. And it's really going to help advance NDASA and our cause.
Absolutely. And thank you. I felt that it's very important that if you're going to be taking your time, because I know it's not easy to do this and to be able to do things on behalf of the membership, plus do everything that you have to do in your personal life and everything else. It's a lot to undertake. But at the same time, people need to understand who each of the candidates are and why they may be the best choice for the position they're running for. So, I only have a couple questions left for you. And one of them is, you know, what I have found with leadership is as you continue to grow, that you continue to educate yourself, you continue to learn, and you talked a little bit about that earlier. So we've been to dinner before, but if we were to go out to lunch and we were to have a conversation, and if there's one book that you've read, one book that you feel would make the difference in how people take on these responsibilities and the things that you're talking about, what would that book be? What would you encourage me to read?
How to make friends.
Mm,
It was a how-to that I had to do in college somehow, some way. And I don't know if it was in my speech class or something along that way, but it was, without friends and without colleagues and without connections, you're not going to get anywhere. Like you could be that loudest person standing over there on a soapbox. And trust me, I drag my soapbox out all the time. But if you don't have friends that are going to help you, yeah, I do. If you don't have friends who are going to help you get that message out, you're just that lone crazy person standing over there with a message that might be what other people need or might be helpful to somebody else. But if you don't have friends that are saying, hey, come over here and listen to this person really knows what they're talking about, or without someone to champion along with you. So yeah, that book, How to Make Friends, it was pivotal to, and I didn't think so, right? When it was assigned to me in college, and I was like, how old is this book? Anything like this book was written in 1950, whatever. Like,
How to Win Friends and Influence
yeah.
People. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
it's a classic. It's a really good
Yeah.
book. And I think, like you said, it still resonates with leaders today. It's the same thing that we're all going through and understanding that and being able to do it. So that is a great book. So thank you. Uh, Chandra, I wanted to take a moment to just acknowledge you and all the things that you bring to the table and the things that you've done for the industry thus far. You're very active in the town halls, and people have reached out to you specifically asking questions and things like that because they feel, the confidence that you know that, and this is your area of expertise, and you're going to be able to give them the guidance and the direction that they need. And that is so important to have people like yourself that are willing to be there and not, shy away from those questions that people are afraid to ask and then afraid to answer. I've seen how you interact with the members and everything, and it's a gift. And I think that that is something that needs to be acknowledged because not everybody, like you talked about earlier, is willing to put themselves out there to be able to do that, to be able to have people that are going to criticize without really knowing or understand. And but you know what? You're the one who's putting yourself out there. You're the one who's answering that call. And it's not easy. And I just wanted to take that moment to thank you because sometimes that thanks and that gratitude isn't expressed. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I never I didn't envision that this was where I would be. I didn't, it wasn't part of what I saw as my path. But I have discovered that teaching, educating, sharing, I don't share well with others, but this I share. This I want to share. This I want to make sure that people have all of those pieces. And when I've given presentations or when I've attended conferences or seminars, and I pass out my business card and I tell each and every one of them, listen, if you contact me, I'll answer any question. I might not answer it until Wednesday because it's busy, but and I send out Wednesday wisdom, right? I send out my own little version and I send it to my internal collectors, right? So I train all the collectors in my organization and I send it there. I send it to people who have attended conferences and given me their card, or SHRM events where I've been the speaker and people give me their cards, and I compile them and I've made it into this significant list of people that I send out every Wednesday, some tiny little nugget of whatever. And maybe it doesn't pertain to you, right? So maybe it's a nugget for collectors. And maybe next week it's a nugget for DERs or, whatever. But it's just these little tidbits and reminders of, hey, don't forget about this rule, or hey, don't forget about this. So I like sharing that. And I appreciate that you recognize it. Thank you.
Well, it's pretty evident, and I'm grateful that we have people like yourself that are willing to put themselves out there and to be part of the board, because we need that. So, Chandra, you've been very free with your time, and I appreciate it in the opportunity to have you on the show. I wish you good luck in your run for the board. And is there anything in closing that you'd like to say to the membership as they consider you for their vote?
I hope that my point of views align with yours, and if they do, I would appreciate your vote. If they don't, just vote with your heart. Make sure that you vote, right? And that's really where we're at. And that happens no matter what we're doing, right? And but cast your vote. Make sure that your voice is in that cast and it's heard, and you get what you think is best for yourself and your organization.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And I appreciate having you on the show. And I'm looking forward to having you back on the show at some point because, like we said, you do have a lot of interesting aspects that you are able to touch on that I think would be interesting to the membership and the other listeners that we have to the podcast. So until we have you on the show again, take care.
Thank you.